Hello and welcome back to another episode of Karak Chat podcast.
An FTI Consulting podcast where we will discuss issues and share views on women in construction.
In today's episode, which we have titled Life Under Construction, we will be exploring the construction industry in the Middle East with special focus on the role of female lawyers and expert witness in this field.
Our guest today is Nesreen Osman from Pinsent Mason.
And we are your host. I'm Nisreen.
And I am Natalia.
Before we start our discussion, I would like to give a brief background on Nisreen's impressive careers. Nisreen is a partner in Pinsent Mason. Based in Pinsent Mason Dubai office, Nisreen has 18 years dispute experience, specializing in construction and engineering dispute. She has been in Dubai for 11 and a half years before she practiced in the UK. Nisreen represents mainly international contractors with projects in the GCC, focusing on the UAE and Saudi. In addition to her arbitration experience, a significant portion of Nisreen's time is also spent advising clients on issues during project execution, as well as managing alternative means of resolving dispute. Welcome, Nisreen. You have already very impressive career.
But not only that, in addition to this, to her role as partner at Pinsent Mason, Nisreen sits as an arbitrator for various arbitral institutions. She's also a member of the board of directors of Arbitral Women. Nisreen is also ranked in various directories for construction, including Legal 500 and Who's Who Legal. Nisreen was described in Chambers and Partners Global 2024 as a superb lawyer. She's immensely hardworking, a great strategist, and fantastic with clients, as well as being a delight to work with. She has recently been shortlisted for Asian Legal Business Women of the Year Award. Welcome, Nisreen. Welcome to our podcast, and we are excited to having you here.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Okay, Nisreen, so how's the day so far? Did you find any issues to arrive here to the studio?
Day's going well. Yeah, no problems at all getting here, surprisingly. Business Bay is a difficult part of town, sometimes with the traffic, but it's been great.
Yeah, I noticed the same today. The traffic was amazing. So what did you bring you to here, to this part of the world?
I moved to Dubai in 2013, and before that I was in Scotland, where I trained and practiced for 7 years. I got to the point where I had done about 5 or 6 years in private practice in Scotland, doing construction disputes, really enjoying it, really enjoying the work, enjoying the clients, but I was starting to think, what else can I do or where else can I be? And I speak Arabic. I have family in the Middle East, and so Dubai was a kind of obvious one. Obviously, the extent of construction work in the region generally, but especially in Dubai, is huge. So it seemed like a very obvious place to try a new start. So I left Scotland and came out here with a firm called Trowers and Hamlins.
Good.
I was with them, and a fantastic group of people. I was with them for a year and a half and really got to see quite a lot of the work out here, and absolutely loved being out here. A year and a half flew by. I'd originally planned just 2 years.
Yeah.
I think everybody does that. They come out with a 2-year plan. 2 years flew by, and when I got to that point, 18 months, I thought, actually, is this the right place for me? And there was an opportunity at Pinsent Masons.
Great.
So it's almost 10 years at Pinsent Masons this month, and I've loved it ever since.
Wow, congratulations, 10 years. It's a big milestone. I think also Natalia has a similar story.
Yes, I think, yes. Okay, I just, in my case, I was transferred from my previous company to here, also to work in arbitration. As well, I thought it was an amazing place to be here because of the construction industry in the region, and since I've been here, also my plan was to stay for 2 years. I just did 4, so I'm still happy to be here. And what about you, Nisreen?
Yeah, I think me and Natalia, we mentioned our story a lot of time in the podcast. So. But I think, as well, for me, I had different story because actually we We came on holiday last February with my family, and we just really fell in love in Dubai. We felt like it's really family friendly because we also have younger child. Of course, also with a lot of construction opportunities here. So we decided to relocate from London to Dubai, and that was in December. And so far, it's going very well, actually.
You've survived the summer, so that's
Yeah,
good.
that's the first summer,
Yeah.
correct.
But now winter is coming, and so now the good season.
Yeah, the good life is coming back.
Yeah.
But actually, now I'm thinking about it. Have you ever wanted to be a lawyer? Like, what did you want to be when a child? What was your first job?
So my first job was in a shoe shop. So when I was 16. In terms of being a lawyer, no, it wasn't my original idea. I think you're very, very influenced by your parents. And so my dad was a doctor and my mom was a lawyer. And I'd always gravitated towards the medical side of things.
okay.
So my original plan was to be a doctor. I didn't quite make it into medicine. My chemistry let me down very badly. I was awful at chemistry. So I ended up studying anatomy at university. And to be honest, it's a little bit by chance because I'd really never thought about being a lawyer, even though my mom was, because she didn't practice. So it was never something I saw every day. Having started my anatomy degree, and then in my second year of anatomy, we started studying medical legal aspects of medicine, and I just find it fascinating. That was really the first time I'd started thinking about the legal side of things. Really enjoyed that course, and pretty much by the end of second year, I'd applied for the law degree. I finished my anatomy degree, that was 4 years at Glasgow University, and then I moved straight into the law degree. And in Scotland, you can do that in 2 years if you are already a graduate.
Oh, very good.
So I did this. It's like the conversion course in England. And then straight from there, I did my diploma, which is the sort of the equivalent of there's like a 1 year course in the UK that you do post your law degree. And straight onto my traineeship. And suddenly I find myself working in construction disputes.
Oh, that's quite interesting. But for me, it's strange. How did you manage to move from anatomy to construction? Because it's kind of looks like a kind of strange move, no?
Yeah, it's a very strange move. The reason for that, and again, it's fluke really. I trained at a firm in Scotland that specialised in construction disputes. They were very highly rated for it at that point in time. And one of my seats, the lawyers do traineeships with 4 seats, so one of my seats was in construction disputes. And again, just by luck, it happened to be the seat that I did in my third seat. And that's the time you choose where you're going to qualify. So I was just, I think, very lucky to have landed in that seat at that point in time.
Oh, good.
And they were very good at construction disputes. They were fantastic teachers, and I loved working in that team. And that made me decide, out of all of the other seats that I had done, that was the one for me.
Did you find many opportunities in Scotland to work in construction or arbitration, or did you move like that?
So not as much in arbitration. We did some, but not a lot. The majority of the work was in the courts, adjudications,
sure.
expert determinations. So everything else that we see now, but not so much arbitration. The Arbitration Act in Scotland was changed in 2010.
Yes.
And so after that point, we started to see more arbitrations, but nowhere near the number of arbitrations we do here.
Yes, but I know that in adjudication, there are many adjudications in Scotland as well in England,
Yeah.
And I think that's also take me to another question, which is the main topic of our podcast, women in construction. What are your thoughts on the topic? Are we seeing a lot of or more female being involved in construction, and why it's important to see more female?
I mean, in construction broadly, I think we probably are, but not enough, not quickly enough. Obviously, I see a different side of construction. I see it when it gets to dispute. I'm not quite so familiar with, if you were to walk onto a construction site, how many women will you see? I suspect very few.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see more come through in terms of when we're helping clients, the engineers involved, for example. But in terms of a lady being the engineer under the contract, I haven't seen that yet. A lady being a project director on a construction, I haven't seen that yet. And so I think there are probably I go to the Women in Construction Conference, for example. There are plenty of female engineers and QSs there. Yeah. I know they're there. But when it comes to my side of construction and the disputes, I'm really not seeing very many at all doing the actual work. I obviously come across ladies in terms of from the consultancy side of things and experts. But my impression is that on the ground in construction projects, there's really not a lot of females still.
I think I have similar opinion actually. Because even when I was on the site, because at the beginning of my career, I was a planning engineer on site, but I still was on the management side of business more. So I will not be the person who's, for example, doing the job on site. But I think also it is just the fact that the physical job is just more demanding. But for example, I had a lot of architects with us, like female architects. We have also a lot of structural engineers, so you go out, do the inspection. So I think from my experience, I've seen more female on the side, maybe not doing the physical work, more than expert. But I think recently, especially in our company, we have seen now more female expert joining.
From my point of view, before I work in the expert or consultancy industry, I worked almost 15 years for contractors. And there are two sides. You have the headquarters, or maybe the home office where the project is designed, and maybe the brain of the project. And also you have the site. For example, at the site, you will find more men than women. That's for sure. And also, there was a period of time that I was doing power shutdowns for power plants. And in that period, when you are on site, because that is purely on site, you will see that all the mechanics, electricians, most of 99% are men. However, it doesn't mean that you are not finding women in construction or in engineering. However, maybe they are not on site. There's another thing. Sometimes people think that because there is not a woman on site, she doesn't have the experience.
Correct.
I have been years in projects, and guys in projects were telling me, I've been on site 3 years. I went actually to site 3 times.
Yeah, that's correct. That's
because sometimes, I've been on site actually last week. I spent almost 3 weeks in a site in Saudi, in Riyadh.
Yeah,
sometimes you see the offices, there is a building, and the site could be 2 kilometers away.
That's correct, yeah.
Sometimes
you spend most of the time in the cabinet itself doing the work as well.
In the home office, I mean in the building itself, in the office, in the site office, but not
in the site itself.
In the site, the proper site.
Correct.
So it's it's kind of not 100% true. Sometimes what happens is that they are maybe in the office, in the home office, maybe, for example, in my case was Madrid. Okay, but so it's not 100% true. And in my case, I saw many, at least in my former company, there is maybe 40-50% of the employees are women.
So it sounds like the women are there, you just don't see them on site, obviously, and maybe because of the area that I work in, and that when disputes happen, it tends to be the more senior people on the project that we deal with, and it's whether women are getting to that level.
That could be the reason. For me, the reason is not that there are not enough women. Maybe is that later on, for a reason that maybe we will discuss later, is when the professional career of women start after a few years. You will see that it suffers some issues, and are the males that are promoted, yes, and not the ladies.
I think like it just, I don't want to say it makes sense, but like in most of the cases, 95 or 99%, for example, as you say, the project director or project manager will be a male. I think, as Natalia said also, because there is a lot of females start their career as engineer, but to arrive to this level of seniority, I think sometimes there is some things get in the way, and we will discuss it as well later.
You will find many project engineers, female project engineers, but not so many female project managers. So, Nisreen, which are your views on when you are deciding an expert, to appoint an expert? What do you think? Do you think that it's important that the expert have a site experience or not?
I think it depends on the case, but usually I would say yes. Quite often we will ask experts to go to site because we're talking about construction here, so that it's good for the expert to have gone to site to see the site and see what's, by then it's already been built, for example. But it helps. And I think site experience is important because the expert may be judging how something was built. Was it built correctly? Was the design followed? So I think it is important. And so the site experience is important. I'd be surprised if anybody really is working as an expert without site experience. Even when it comes to design, you said earlier, that a lot of females may end up on the design side of things, and that they would work at head office rather than on site. But I think it's still important, even there, for them to have been at site to see that construction process happen. So yes, I think that the knowledge of site is very important.
I think even for us as delay expert, we visited the site more than one time. In some cases, we worked on, and preferably to have site experience even as planning engineers and this stuff. But I think talking about these challenges, and we now, like me and Natalia also, as we discussed that, we saw a lot of female engineers more than at least female expert. And given all these improvements happening now in construction industry, what do you think is still missing, or what do you think more improvement we can do to improve the presence of female lawyer, female expert in the construction industry?
I think to answer that question, we need to look at what point we see females dropping away from both areas. And it might be the answer is different for experts and for lawyers. I'll take lawyers first because that's what I'm most familiar with. We have a lot of ladies going into law. When you look at law school, when you look at traineeships, there are plenty, more than 50%, I'd say, is females. And so there's no problem getting ladies into law. Where we see drop-off is later, and it generally tends to be once they've had children. And so that tells us that the problem is bringing ladies back into law once they've had children. And by law, here I'm talking specifically about private practice. Now, what tends to happen is a lot of ladies may take in-house roles, which are sometimes seen as being slightly more family-friendly. Not always the case. I have a lot of in-house lawyer friends who work just as many hours as I do, but it's got that perception. So, or they may just stay at home, decide they want to be with their children, take 5-10 years out. So the bringing ladies back into law is the issue, I think. And it's because of that, I think we don't see so many ladies as partner as we do men. So we're definitely not at 50-50. And so that seems to be the reason in terms of, from a law perspective. From an expert perspective, I'm not entirely sure if it's exactly the same. My sense is that perhaps for experts, you might see, or let's say consultancy, you might see the reduction earlier. So it might be that you have maybe 50-50 or less than 50-50 at university. But getting into the role in the first place, there might be a hurdle there. And then you've got the same sort of hurdle as when you get to family sort of age.
Yeah, I think also from our experience, I think also what we also trying now to improve is the underrepresentation of expert. I think you have way more male experts rather than female. I don't know the percentage, but that's why I think the perspective that you see like more appointments coming to male expert. So maybe you will just think, oh, then it's must that the male experts are more experienced in the construction dispute. You know, when you have 10 male experts appointed and only one female expert, you might say, oh, maybe it is because it's construction, so maybe male experts are more qualified. So Nisreen, how you think we can bridge the gap for this female lawyer to arrive to the seniority level?
It's something that law firms have been trying to work on and battle with for quite a long time. What we do is we try and give flexibility so that a lady who goes on maternity leave, for example, is able to come back part-time, work flexibly, work from home. So all of these are options. They're actually options for males and females because a part of this process isn't just to get the woman back, it's to actually allow her to feel comfortable that home is also being looked after. So if the husband has the opportunity to work from home, work flexibly, it just allows the whole family to manage the process better. So that's one way. We also have a quite generous paternity leave. We do 16 weeks for fathers, which is great because it means that a mum might then take 6 months and feel comfortable going back to work at that stage because the father's going to be home for another 4 months rather than her taking 10 months or a year. Yeah. So these sort of things really make a difference because, you know, as a mum, I've got a 4-year-old. The hardest thing for me was going back to work, having been with him for 8 months. But I didn't have that opportunity because my husband doesn't work at our firm. So had he been able to take 4 months, I would have been a lot more comfortable. And maybe I'd done my 8 months and he might have done the next 4. We'd have had a whole year with him at home. So I think these kinds of initiatives really help. Yeah. I think we still have some way to go. I know a lot of firms don't do this. And I think that the rules in the UAE and other countries in the GCC don't allow us generous maternity leave or paternity leave. So we do have some way to go in the region, but I think the more firms that start these initiatives, the better.
I think that's really like what I also always think about, because if it's only maternity leave, that's mean you are the one who's stepping back all the time. So as you said, some female take 10 months, some female take 1 year. Because there is no other option.
Yeah, and you know, it's a sacrifice, and most mums, I think, will say absolutely worth it. I don't think there's a single mum that will say, no, I didn't want to stay home with my child. The problem comes to when you go back, and how easy is it for you to go back, and how is the process simplified for you to help you get back onto your cases, to be able to manage having a small child, the hours that you do. All of these things have to be set up properly, and it's very, very individual. Everyone's going to need a slightly different way of doing things. So the firms really have to be very flexible for each individual to allow them to come back and to progress their career and step back into it. And then when you think about, you know, a lot of people have 2-3 children. So if it's always the mum who's taking the time out, you can see how the woman's career suddenly starts to fall further and further behind compared to the men. So the more that firms help with these types of initiatives, the better.
What we see is that in your case, you have been very successful. You have been very successful because now you are a partner. How was your journey from lawyer now to your position?
I mean, I don't think my journey is particularly different. The only difference maybe is that a lot of ladies might have had their children before they made partner. So when they were associates or senior associates. I had my son just after I made partner. I've still not quite decided in my head whether that was a good thing or a sort of more difficult thing. I think more and more so, and maybe perhaps in Dubai and this part of the world, we will see more ladies having children later and having children after
Yes.
they've made partner. But I think traditionally it's always been the case that ladies do that before then, associate, senior associate level. So my journey was quite straightforward in terms of making partnership because I didn't have to worry about having children, etc. Having made partner, it's now sometimes difficult because I still have a very young child and I still have to do all of the things that partners do in terms of business development and the traveling and all of that. So you're still juggling and perhaps you're juggling slightly different things to if I had had him when I was a senior associate, I would probably be juggling work only, I would imagine. But now you're juggling a lot of other things, business development, management meetings, all of the things that we all do on a day-to-day basis. So both, I think, have their challenges, but it still takes me back to what I was saying earlier about the flexibility that the firms give you.
Good.
And now also if we move to the expert witness, as we were talking as well, there is less expert, female expert will get appointment. How can we help more female expert to get appointment from your experience as well?
I mean, I think for me, from what I've seen, it's all about exposure. This perhaps is the same for lawyers as well. People need to know you exist and what you do,
Yes.
right? Or else you're not going to get instructions from anyone. So exposure is really important. And we're lucky in Dubai for the winter part. There's a lot of events.
Yep.
And I think one of the biggest things is just being out there and being seen and talking to people. So from an expert's perspective, talking to lawyers so that they know you are there and what you do, and getting the opportunity to tell them about your experience, why you are an expert.
Yes.
I think what you're saying earlier is probably true because there are so many male experts.
Yeah, correct.
I think there's maybe an unconscious thing in our minds that, well, he's a man, he must be an expert. But actually, that's not the case, of course. You can be an expert if you're a woman and you can have just as much experience. So I think part of it is exposure. It's doing things like this, so people know who you are. It's writing articles.
Yeah.
It's attending events.
Yes.
It's putting yourself forward for awards.
Yep.
It's all of that put together, and just being known so that, you know, we do this all the time. We're bringing on board experts for our cases all the time, and if we know who's there and what's, you know, so every case is different. There are different types of experts for different types of cases. But if I know that there are female experts who do that work, I will always make sure they're in the mix, always. And I think the more you engage with the lawyers as an expert and push your own sort of background and experience, the more chance you're going to have of being in the 3 or 4 CVs that are then presented to the client. There is then a further challenge, unfortunately, which is convincing the client that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not, the lawyers don't have the kind of final say on a lot of this stuff. And certainly for us, we work with very sophisticated clients who've been through a lot of disputes. Quite often they have experts in mind because they've worked with them before. So there's a little bit of a hurdle sometimes trying to get the clients to open up to new people, first of all, male or female. But then when it's a new female, sometimes there's a little bit of a challenge with some clients who are a bit more traditional, who only ever worked with male experts to convince them. But I've had female experts on plenty of my cases and they've all done really, really well. And sometimes it's been a battle to say to the client, this is the right person. You have to be, as the lawyer in that situation, capable of explaining exactly why that female is better than that male. And it's usually down to the CV and their experience.
Yeah, interesting. Actually, also that's maybe lead us to nicely with this question. So since the launch of the ERA pledge in 2015, have you seen more improvements or more experts, as you said, like more female expert CV when you receive, proposal or new case?
Yes. I have.
That's good.
I have, and it's really good actually. I've seen not just more CVs, I've seen more female experts out in the market. I'm contacted quite frequently by people saying, we're bringing a lady expert in this, would you like to meet her for coffee? And I will always say yes. And I will always try and take someone with me, one of the male partners. So I think there is definitely more awareness, which is fantastic. And I think it's slowly starting to have a bit of an impact. These things never move as quickly as we want them to.
Yes.
But I think, step by step, it's getting better, and the ERA pledge has definitely made a big difference there.
For example, when you receive a proposal and you see that there is a consultancy firm, the team is a mixed one, do you think that it has, if the profiles are good, do you think that they have a better chance? Do you think that it's important when they present like a mix male and female teams?
Yes, of course. From my perspective, absolutely. I mean, having that mix is important for diversity of thought, for all sorts of reasons. Taken as a given that the experience and the quality of the two teams is the same. I will always lean towards a mixed team because I see how important it is to have both perspectives. So we have it in our partnership. So we have 3 male partners and 2 female partners in the region. We've just hired the 3rd who started with us today. So now we are entirely 50-50 in the construction disputes team, and it's fantastic. That doesn't happen very often. And it's really important. You see it in the meetings that we have, the different ideas that the women come up with compared to the men. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but having that mix is really important.
Yeah, that is what I think, that it would be very beneficial to have that in an expert case or an expert report.
Definitely.
So mixed teams are important, but also they can give a different perspective. Can you give us an example of this kind of different perspective? How can benefit?
I mean, yes, I think diversity of thought, first of all, is very important. Diversity of knowledge, of course. And in that scenario, and certainly, I mean, if you look at it from a leadership team's perspective, it's really good to have the thoughts of both the male and the female, because we perceive things quite differently sometimes. And so it's good to have what the man might think about it, what a male partner might think about it, and then what the woman might think about it. Something that might seem menial to a man might be actually quite problematic from a woman's perspective. And so when you've got a mixed team working for you, you want to make sure that everyone's looked after and everyone's perception, point of view is considered. And so if you have a mixed leadership team, it means it just allows that to happen in a much better way, rather than a senior team that is made only of women or only of men.
Yes, that's true, because if you have one group that thinks the same way, I don't know, maybe the solution cannot take into account different points of view.
And there might be things that are just completely missed because that perception's just not there.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, do you have any mentor, and how important was the mentorship in your journey?
So I didn't have a mentor as such, because obviously I've moved around as well. But what I did have was some very impressive female partners that I looked up to, both in Scotland and here. And so that has been amazing, because I think it's so important for you to see what you can achieve. And having impressive female partners throughout my whole journey, right from the start. Even in Scotland, our team had, I think it was actually 2 of the 6, maybe 3 of the 6 were females. It's amazing, because it tells you that you can achieve that. That's what you can aim for. And then here, when I came to Dubai, a very similar situation at Travers and Hamlins. I had a fantastic lady who was in charge there, and at Pinsent Masons as well. So I've been very lucky to have impressive people to look up to and to guide me. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. And I think it's, even if you don't have that specific mentor-mentee relationship, just looking up and seeing someone do what you want to do has a fantastic influence.
And following with that, now that you are in a senior position, what is your role as a mentor?
Yes, so I am mentoring 4 people at the moment across the globe. It's fantastic. They're all different levels, all ladies. Some of them are here in the region, some of them are in the UK. And I'm trying to do what I saw being done, which is to provide guidance on whatever area they want help with. And it's because they're different levels, it's different things. But I think it's really important. I'm very happy to help, and it's actually quite nice for me to feel like, I'm able to support someone else as well.
Good. So what would be your advice to a young female lawyer or expert witness who want to enter into the arbitration industry and they are a little bit overwhelmed because of this male-dominant industry?
I think the most important thing I would say, apart from obviously just doing the job and actually being involved in arbitrations, and that's all to do with your own setup within your firms, is network. Build a network. Go out there, tell people who you are and what you do. Try and go to as many events as possible. Raise awareness about you and what you can do is really important. And join organizations. For example, Arbitral Women.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic organization. There's over 1,000 ladies as part of it, as members of it. And it's open to lawyers and expert witnesses, anybody working in dispute resolution.
Yes.
And it's a really good forum. You can, promote your events, for example. You can attend their events. You can do their mentorship scheme. There's a parental mentorship scheme. So it's a really good way to just meet other people who do what we do. So definitely, from my perspective, network and join organizations that will help you meet more people.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. By the way, I joined Arbitral Women.
Good.
Yeah, me too as
Good.
well. When I
Excellent.
arrived to Dubai, actually, Natalia told me about it, and also we joined it.
Yeah, it's an excellent organization.
Yeah, and I just want to ask, while thinking about it, recently, have you worked on really challenged case?
Every case is challenging. They all have their own challenges. It's interesting because it doesn't necessarily need to be a big money case. Big money cases have their challenges, but small cases also have their challenges. They're different challenges, but they can also be challenging. So most cases, and I think also because of the reputation that the firm has and the clients that we have, they generally come to us with difficult questions.
Yes.
So it's always challenging. You just have to love the challenge, and I do. So if that's what you sort of drives you, then it's not a chore, but it can be challenging.
Yeah, and also, again, given our demanding job, and as you said, all these challenges, how do you manage the work-life balance? Do you have any hobbies? If you have some free time, how do you like to spend it?
I have no hobbies, unfortunately. I really should, but I don't. I obviously, work takes up a lot of time, but my family takes up a lot of time as well. So as I mentioned, I've got a 4-year-old. He takes up most of my weekends, as you can imagine. And that actually is quite a nice way to switch off. Children have a fantastic ability to just get your head out of your work and onto whatever toy or tantrum they're having. So that is downtime. It's certainly work. It takes my head out of the cases. But I do wish I had hobbies, and I'm going to try. Every year I make a resolution. I'm going to start a hobby of some sort, but I've yet to find one that I can stick with.
Yeah, I think for me it's similar as well, because I have 3-year-old baby, so I always switch off at night, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., bed story time, and I think that's the best way, as you said, because also reading all this nice story, silly stuff but lovely, it just takes you to different world. So Nisreen, thank you so much for being here today. We have covered a lot of ground, but before we let you go, if there is any one key takeaway you would love our listener to remember from this podcast.
I think from the perspective of both lawyers and experts, female lawyers, female experts, my one takeaway is to just build your network, do your business development, get out there and make people aware of who you are and what you do. I think that will stand you in very good stead going forward.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to having you here.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's my first podcast. It's been excellent. Thank you.
So please tune in for the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here again, Nisreen.